$250,000 didn't just vanish from the books, it vanished from the screen too. During filming of 90 Day Fiancé, that giant chunk of money reportedly disappeared amid explosive cast tension, suspicious business dealings, and a storyline that somehow never made it into the show. But that's not even the wildest part. The footage of the incident? Gone, not lost. Not corrupted. Deleted. Allegedly on purpose. Welcome to TLC Drama Files with me, Oliva, your go-to truth serum for when reality TV starts looking more like reality theater. Hit that subscribe button if you're tired of the lies, and sound off in the comments if you ever felt something was off with Libby and Andre's story because, turns out, you were right. Now here's what TLC didn't want you to see. According to multiple insiders, while Season 9 was deep into production, an internal money crisis emerged tied to the family's Florida-based real estate dealings. Someone raised a red flag about a financial black hole, $250,000 unaccounted for, money allegedly flowing between companies linked to Andre and the infamous brother-in-law, Charlie. Tensions ran high. Screaming matches broke out, and at least one physical altercation was caught on camera. And yet, it never aired. The explanation? Weak. The scene was reportedly removed for continuity issues. But months later, a whistleblower, an assistant editor known only as M, dropped a digital bomb. Internal logs showing that the videos were tagged "Do Not Air" pending legal review. Sections of footage permanently wiped from the main server and stored in a password-protected archive. And in one file description, a direct note: remove dollar amounts from storyline. So wait, they had the fight on record. They had on-screen tension that explained so much fan confusion. But instead of airing it, TLC allegedly hit the delete key and wrapped the missing $250,000 in a neat little bow called editing discretion. The family was imploding. The money trail was suspicious, and the cameras were rolling. So why didn't you see it? If $250,000 melted into thin air while the cameras were on, and we never saw it, what else was buried with it in TLC's cutting room floor? On screen, Andre was the guy you either hated or couldn't stop watching. The gruff foreigner yelling at the in-laws, throwing barbs at Charlie, and acting like he owned the house he married into. But behind that bravado, behind the shouting and smirking, sources say Andre was drowning in something much quieter. Fear. Not just of a broken marriage or bad press. Fear that he might be deported in the middle of filming. That producers might capture his fall, not his redemption. And not all of that fear was baseless. According to leaked internal notes from a production staffer, Andre's immigration status was under unofficial review by the time Season 9 was greenlit. This wasn't some random stamp denial. It was the kind of background complication that keeps lawyers up at night. The whispers started swirling: unverified income reports, contradictory job history, disorganized financial filings, all tied directly to the proof Andre needed to renew his legal stay in the U.S. The timing wasn't great. He had declared income from work with Elizabeth's family real estate firm. But some records didn't match. Insiders say producers were quietly told that his self-employed status might raise red flags, and they were not allowed to discuss it on set. Instead, they were reportedly encouraged to frame any of Andre's on-camera aggression as family tension, not immigration stress. But think about what that would do to someone. You're filming possibly the most public season of your reality TV relationship, while knowing there's a file sitting in some federal office that could label you a liar and send you packing. And every time he raised his voice or snapped at a family member, it wasn't always about ego. It might have been about pressure. You can hide fear in 3 ways: silence, withdrawal, or rage. Andre didn't go quiet. He went on offense. In scene after scene, we saw him butt heads with Elizabeth's family, push back hard, and double down even when wrong. Classic overcompensation. The louder he got, the more audiences rolled their eyes. But in his head, that fight might have been survival. Was Andre fighting for control, or was he just fighting to stay in the country? The camera might have been rolling, but the story you saw, that wasn't reality. It was regulation. According to former crew members, before Season 9 even started filming, producers held what one insider called a narrative alignment session, laying out exactly what could and couldn't be discussed on camera. At the top of the red alert list, visa, immigration, deportation. Those were the forbidden words, not whispered on set, not joked about in confessionals, not even hinted at in fight scenes. Gone, erased, off limits. So when Andre's voice went up an octave screaming at Charlie, the show sold it as alpha male tension. Patriarch Turf war, Brother-in-law showdown again. But what wasn't shown? According to leaked internal editor notes, the fight originally stemmed from Charlie bringing up Andre's legal status at dinner, calling him a freeloader with paperwork issues. That part was cut entirely. Producers allegedly slapped on a filter of protect the narrative, instead of showing Andre stressed about legal uncertainty or bringing in a real immigration lawyer for on-camera help. They pushed his storyline into confrontation mode. Elizabeth was steered away from meaningful dialogue and told, per a source, to keep it about the family feud. That's why, out of nowhere, some episodes pivoted into reruns of birthday party brawls and backyard shouting. Because the actual plot was radioactive to TLC's brand. TLC doesn't film truth. It films tension it can control. Real immigration problems? Too risky. Visa rejection mid-season? That's a legal crisis, not a ratings win. But Andre vs. Charlie? Safe, familiar, marketable. They basically flashcarded the audience into loving the mess while hiding the chaos behind it. And remember those confessionals, where Elizabeth looked like she was holding back tears, blinking a little too long between sentences? According to someone who worked the post-production booth, raw footage showed her asking, "Can I talk about the lawyer meeting?" The producer's voice buzzed over the speaker. "No, keep it general." It wasn't a documentary. It was storyboarding in real time, with real people. If every storyline was engineered to hide the truth, what else have we been watching with blindfolds on? So now you have on-screen screaming, off-screen silence, and a couple forced to pose like nothing's wrong while quietly unraveling behind closed doors. And the pressure didn't come from fans. It came from the very company directing the show. There's a moment in one unaired clip where Elizabeth sits alone in a makeup chair, clutching a tissue, whispering, "I don't know how much longer I can fake this." The room's silent. Then a producer steps in and reminds her, "We need you focused. Don't ruin the storyline." That sentence? It hits different when you realize her husband was allegedly under legal review for potential deportation, and she was being told to smile through it. On 90 Day Fiancé, Elizabeth came off as the peacemaker, the middle child trying to juggle an explosive husband, a messy family, and a camera crew fishing for good TV. But off camera, multiple insiders say she was crumbling. She hadn't just been filming a show. She'd been carrying a secret she wasn't allowed to say out loud. According to a former production assistant who worked several home scenes, Elizabeth broke down more than once between takes. One moment, she was filming a cheerful line about her growing family. The next, silent tears, mascara running, whispering. They could take him away, and I wouldn't even be able to explain why. But what did TLC do with that very real emotion? They clipped it, reframed it, turned her heartbreak into mom stress. If Elizabeth looked panicked, the edit made it seem like she was overwhelmed with parenting, not immigration lawyers. If she turned away mid-confessional to collect herself, producers allegedly told editors to cut to B-roll of baby toys, sunlight through windows, anything that makes it look domestic. The pressure didn't just come from family expectations. It came from network handlers who, according to leaked internal memos, told her, "Stick to family drama. Stay away from paperwork." That line was repeated throughout the cast call sheets. Stay in character. Protect the arc, and then you remember, this isn't fiction. This was her real marriage, her real livelihood, her real future with a husband who might not legally be here next month. But every time she tried to speak the weight of it into the lens, she got a reminder. That's not the story we're telling. Was Elizabeth acting on camera or surviving? Somewhere in the chaos of family barbecues, shouting matches, and awkward confessionals, a huge amount of money quietly shifted hands. $250,000 gone. And the deeper you look, the more it starts to look less like clumsy bookkeeping and more like a cover. Leaked internal documents, allegedly sourced from Pothast Real Estate's internal review, show hundreds of thousands moved across two names, Charlie and Andre. The transactions weren't routine. They were labeled as unclassified transfers, uncategorized withdrawals, and in two cases, falsely documented project expenses. These were no quick Venmo slips. We're talking tens of thousands routed through connected businesses over just 6 weeks, while cameras were rolling, and here's where it gets even weirder. The timeline of these transactions lines up exactly with Andre's visa renewal process. See, when applying for a residency extension, you're required to show stable, legal, and verifiable income. It's how immigration decides whether someone can stay. According to two production insiders who were briefed off the record, there was growing concern that Andre's personal finances weren't adding up. With a construction business that barely had public contracts and a reality TV check that TLC didn't treat as formal employment, Andre needed to prove financial stability from somewhere. So what raises more eyebrows than a sudden $250,000 in movement, landing right when you need to make your immigration paperwork look clean? Now, we have no legal proof of fraud, and no one in the family has been charged. But insiders claim that's only because the issue never made it past the internal phase. TLC's legal branch allegedly stepped in when the paper trail spilled into production meetings, and not to investigate, to quiet it. Editors were reportedly told to remove all references to project budgets, invoices, or finances from on-screen scenes. Make the drama feel personal, not financial. Meanwhile, Charlie allegedly confronted Andre about the transfers on camera, called him out, threw paperwork in his face. Newsflash: that entire scene got deleted in post. Why? One edit note attached to the removed sequence reads, "Too specific. Financial conflict not endorsed by network compliance. Why did the missing money appear right when his visa problems peaked? Because where money moves fast, motives tend to surface even faster. And this time, the cameras were aimed at exactly the wrong plotline. But the next part gets even messier, because the scene that captured it all has never been aired. Or at least not yet. It was loud. It was physical. And it was completely erased. Multiple crew insiders confirmed that one of the most explosive moments in 90 Day Fiancé history never aired, despite being fully captured by 3 cameras and 2 crew audio rigs. According to leaked edit logs and call sheet entries, the scene occurred inside a rented Tampa property during a scheduled shoot between Andre, Charlie, and other members of the Podhost family. Tensions were already running high over the rumored $250,000 discrepancy. But nobody expected it to implode mid-scene. Charlie reportedly showed up to the set with printouts, bank statements, invoices, transfer receipts, all tied to their family businesses. Sources say he slammed these on the table, pointed directly at Andre and said, "Where is the damn money?" That's when Andre allegedly snapped. He stood up, shouted back, and in front of cameras, both men nearly came to blows. A glass shattered. Someone screamed. Elizabeth cried, "This would have been gold for TLC's usual chaos recipe: drama, volume, high emotion." And yet, it never saw the light of day. An internal footage archive label marked that entire day of filming as S911 podcast Conflicta.move, with an added note, "Do not release, pending clearance review." Just 72 hours later, that file was removed from the server and placed into a locked clearance channel, viewable only by senior legal and production executives. Then, it vanished. One assistant editor, who later leaked portions of the scene's metadata, revealed that this wasn't about protecting cast safety. It was about protecting rating strategy. The note attached specifically warned against airing unverified financial accusations that could lead to legal disputes or reputational risk. Translation: TLC allegedly made the call not based on truth, but on narrative control. This season wasn't supposed to show a financial scandal and a possible green card interference. It was designed, cut, framed, and assembled to tell a story about family ego and cultural clashes. The brawl didn't fit. The timeline didn't fit. So it was buried. They didn't delete the footage because it wasn't real. They deleted it because it was, if what the crew is saying is true, then TLC wasn't documenting reality. It was managing optics. And the louder the truth got behind the scenes, the harder the edits had to work to drown it out. But what happens when receipts start leaking faster than edits can be made? The next part takes us all the way to Moldova, and it raises even bigger questions about Andre's past. When Andre first showed up on 90 Day Fiancé, the vibe was simple. Tough guy dad, proud husband, immigrant with a chip on his shoulder, trying to make it in America. That was the image TLC leaned into. Loud, stubborn, aggressive, but hardworking. What they didn't show? Andre's past life as a police officer in Moldova, a job he rarely mentioned on camera. And according to insiders, for good reason. Long before TLC rolled a single camera, Andre reportedly served with the Moldovan National Police, a force not exactly known for its clean reputation. In 2012, years before he ever met Elizabeth, Andre's name allegedly turned up in an internal associates list flagged during a background check tied to international employment records. This wasn't public knowledge. it wasn't included in his cast bio. And it was absolutely, completely banned from being discussed on camera. Why? Because it clashed directly with the story that TLC was selling. They wanted Andre to be the tough but lovable foreigner standing up against a chaotic American family, not a guy with blurred connections to a law enforcement agency in a country that spent years battling corruption headlines. Insiders claim that once TLC's legal team caught wind of the former police job, they held private meetings about it, documented in several leaked emails, and installed a No Moldova clause on all script notes and scene outlines. In simpler terms, no crew member, producer, or cast was allowed to mention Moldova outside of already approved generic references. No backstory, no badge, no details. That's why, if you've ever noticed, Andre never talks about his past in Moldova with any real depth unless it's part of a safe family dinner flashback. It's calculated, and maybe in TLC's eyes necessary, because admitting he served in a system under investigation for human rights complaints and misconduct, that swerves things real fast from family drama into something way heavier. Was this man escaping corruption or leaving evidence behind? We don't know the full extent of his connections. What we do know is that the moment that past threatened to collide with the storyline TLC had greenlit, they shut the door, locked the archives, and pretended it didn't exist. But the real kicker? They didn't stop at rewriting Andre's past. They went even further by redesigning the entire season arc around a fake redemption story. And that's exactly where we're going next. Buried in a leaked drive, nestled between edit logs and internal emails, was a file labeled Project Amber Fence, a title that might sound boring until you realize it was the entire blueprint for reshaping 90 Day Fiancé's Season 9 storyline. And by reshaping, we don't mean smoothing out rough cuts. This was full-blown narrative engineering, top to bottom. The document wasn't long, just 12 pages. But every line hit like a script note from a movie studio, not a reality show supposedly documenting real lives. One internal directive read, replace financial conflict with emotional triggers. Reduce talk of legal or immigration matters. Prioritize spousal tension and family loyalty themes. This wasn't random. It followed audience testing reports showing that confrontations between Andre and Elizabeth's siblings performed better than anything involving paperwork or visa anxiety. So what did TLC do? They shifted the arc. Entire confessionals about Andre attending lawyer meetings or discussing his work history were cut or reshot. Arguments that had originally begun over taxes or unverified income reframed to look like personal digs. One crew member described the process as making Charlie the villain, not because he was wrong, but because he was close to telling the truth. Even the scene where Elizabeth tearfully asks to speak on camera about what they're going through was edited to appear like she was fighting with her sister over parenting choices. According to the leaked Amber Fence timeline, producers pushed any legal-heavy content into private review folders labeled Risk and swapped footage with segments that had better emotional beats and shareable drama. In short, the season wasn't edited. It was rewritten. When editors are instructed to delete the law and insert drama, are we still calling it reality TV? What aired wasn't a family falling apart under pressure. It was a network-approved illusion of dysfunction, carefully color-graded and tested for retention. But the story audiences were allowed to see only existed because the real one was locked away. Now even whistleblowers say what TLC did next wasn't spin, it was control. And the cracks were starting to show. Inside TLC's walls, not everyone agreed with how far things had gone. Editors, assistants, even some producers grew uncomfortable with what they were being asked to do. Some stayed silent. Others started leaking. Anonymously, they described how real storylines were buried under fake arcs, that confessionals were rewritten, that emotional meltdowns were cherry-picked for drama, while serious scenes, especially around legal risks, were wiped clean. One former editor said they knew an entire identity was being managed in post. Another said, it stopped being reality TV, it turned into propaganda for a network trying to protect its brand. The most chilling leak? A contingency episode. Labeled EP12A, Emergency Exit, it was prepped weeks before Andre's visa was supposedly approved. The script direction was clear. If deportation happened mid-season, Elizabeth would film a solo goodbye. Producers would cut early scenes to suggest mutual separation, and Andre would be edited out of final episodes. Yes, they had a backup ending, just in case reality showed up uninvited. This wasn't storytelling. It was story control. Was their love story ever theirs? Or was it written for our entertainment from day one? And if even the goodbye was pre-written to fit a cleaner arc, what does that say about how much of our emotional investment was built on edits? With more staff stepping forward, more documents surfacing, TLC wasn't facing a narrative problem anymore. They were staring down an ethical one. But the most shocking move? Still ahead. Because while fans waited for truth, Andre and Elizabeth made a move no one expected. One day, they were everywhere. Episodes, promos, trending clips. The next, Andre and Elizabeth were just gone. No farewell tour, no goodbye episode, no slow fade. When season 10 arrived, their names weren't on any teasers. Their faces, nowhere to be seen. And the whispers started. At first, it looked like TLC had cut them. But sources close to the family say the opposite. They walked away. Quietly. Deliberately. After years of being reshaped into network characters, they chose peace over plotlines. Paparazzi caught them weeks later in Moldova. Of all places, walking through town with their daughter. Hand in hand, no cameras in sight. That single image sparked chaos. What were they doing there? Had Andre's visa expired? Were they forced out? Or was this the first unaired scene that meant something? Insiders say Elizabeth finally had enough. The pressure, the edits, the warping of every real fear into a meme. And Andre, who once seemed addicted to control, may have realized he had none. Not on their show, not in their story. The fallout was immediate. TLC faced backlash as leaked files gained traction. Viewers started asking hard questions. And in response, the network issued new disclaimers, stating that some scenes may be edited for clarity or storyline purposes. A sanitized way of admitting what whistleblowers already knew. The drama was curated. The truth was filtered. In the end, they didn't get canceled. They canceled the script and walked out of the final frame. And for the first time in years, Andre and Elizabeth stopped being reality stars and started living a real life, whatever that cost them. But the show, still rolling. And if you think they were the only ones edited into silence, wait until you hear what didn't air about Chantel and Pedro. That saga wasn't over. We thought we were watching a love story. A messy one, sure, full of shouting matches, clashing cultures, wild family dinners, but still a love story. A man from Moldova fighting to build a life. A woman torn between loyalty to her husband and loyalty to her bloodline. It felt raw. It felt real, but now, looking back through everything that's leaked, everything scrubbed, everything producers allegedly told them not to say, maybe we weren't watching reality at all. Because this wasn't a story about a green card, or shady money, or one more chaotic in-law squabble. What we were really watching, episode after episode, season after season, was something far more unsettling. Two people slowly crushed under the weight of their own TV personas. Andre wasn't allowed to be vulnerable, uncertain, scared, as many immigrants are when navigating impossible visa systems. No, he had to be the angry, stubborn foreigner, barking orders and picking fights. That was the box he was put in. And he stayed in it because the second he tried to step out, talk about lawyers, documents, real anxiety, TLC pushed cut. Elizabeth wasn't allowed to be confused, tired, or torn about her husband. She had to be the all-American wife, raising a baby with a loud man stuck in a cookie-cutter family feud. Happy when cameras wanted cute. Sad when the episode needed tears. She wasn't protected. She was packaged. Behind the scenes, their lives were unraveling. But on screen, TLC helped them tape it all back together. For your viewing pleasure. They became characters in a drama they never consented to fully control. And when the pressure broke through, when private breakdowns leaked into public view, the footage was deleted. The files were locked. The truth was edited like it had never happened, but it did. They got caught up in something they couldn't escape without stripping away their privacy, their peace, their power. Until finally they left. Not as a plot twist, not as a cliffhanger, but as real people, choosing real life over reality TV. It leaves behind a bigger question. If this much was scripted around Andre and Libby, how many other couples were patched together the same way? How many heartbreaks were shaped around viewer testing? How many toxic dynamics were pushed harder because drama meant ratings? And how many quiet, human moments were thrown out because they didn't test well in focus groups? How much of what we think we saw never really happened? Because if TLC was willing to erase $250,000 in shady dealings, rewrite immigration fears into sound bites, silence breakdowns into B-roll, and bury an entire man's past into a file marked delete, then we aren't just fans watching a show. We're consumers of a lie carefully built for us, episode by episode. And the real victims aren't always the ones on screen throwing plates. Sometimes it's the ones smiling when they want to scream. And if you're asking yourself, how did this happen without us noticing? You're not alone. Between the fake fights, the missing paperwork, and Andre's vanishing backstory, TLC did more than blur the line between fact and fiction. It burned it. So maybe the real headline isn't Andre's betrayal exposed. Maybe it's this: what happens when a network builds characters out of people and then refuses to let them walk away? You watch the love. You watched the fights. You watched the fame, the fallout, and everything in between. But behind all of it was a script. If you think Andre and Libby were TLC's only secret script, wait till you hear what was silenced about Chantel and Pedro. That story isn't over.